Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to our Build Your Career webinar series. My name is Michelle Fawn, and I manage our education and professional service products and service here at the IEEE Computer Society. Each month, we will be hosting webinars on vital business skills that will help you excel throughout your career. Topics covered include communications and presentation skills, interviewing tips, personal branding, effective writing, tips to improve your outside-the-box thinking, and more. Before we get started, I would like to address some housekeeping tasks. The recording of this webinar has started. You can ask any questions in the Q&A panel. Roger Grannis will answer as many questions as he can following his presentation. In a few days, you will receive an email with instructions to access both this presentation slides and recording on demand. Today's webinar is on the 4 languages of influence. You can improve your influence by customizing your interactions based on the DISC communication style instrument. You will learn the practical skills that you can put to work immediately. Roger will show you how to polish your communication skills and feel more confident in one-on-one and group interactions. Joining us today is Roger Grannis, principal of Grannis Group since 2005. Roger understands the engineers and is dedicated his career to helping them communicate more effectively. He has also improved business performance at some of the biggest names in business, such as GE, Underwriting Laboratory, Semantics, Pepsi, Royal Bank of Scotland, Foot Locker, and Synchrony. Roger, thank you for presenting today. The floor is yours. Hello, Roger? I don't think we can hear you. Roger? No, we can't hear you. I don't think any of us can. Oh.
No, we can't hear you. I don't think.
Michelle, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. We apologize. We were changing microphones just before the start, and golly shucks, sounds like that's not the thing to do next time. Anyway, thank you for your patience. Welcome, everybody. Here we go. Just want to let you know that my father has been a lifelong member of IEEE. And so when IEEE reached out about doing some educational sessions, I said, absolutely. My dad went to the monthly meetings in San Francisco every month. He went to the IEEE annual convention every year and would take me when I was but a wee lad. That's a picture of my dad and me in San Francisco moments before I learned I was going to go to work for Gartner in Connecticut. So that turned out to be our farewell lunch. I just want to give you a quick synopsis of my background to just show you how passionate I am about helping engineers communicate better. So the common theme through my career has been helping technical experts communicate well and be more persuasive and influential. I did that at Osborne, which was a the first portable computer developed in the early 80s by Adam Osborne. I didn't work for the computer company. I worked for the book publishing company. We wrote a lot of technical manuals, the Apple II User's Guide, assembly language programming. The theme of the books was to make the complex simple. It's something we've got to do as engineers a lot. Similarly, I worked at Gartner for 17 years. I was in sales, and then I ran sales training, and then I hosted a podcast. Again, helping simplify messages for salespeople, helping our technical experts be clear, concise, and compelling. I love doing it. I was a shy kid growing up. I spent a lot of years overcoming the bashfulness, the stammering and the stuttering. I was in speech therapy. So I have tremendous empathy for technical experts and helping us overcome whatever fears we might have and communicating well. And that's what I do now at Grannis Group. Michelle mentioned we work with a lot of companies, GE, AT&T, IBM. We do a lot in the financial services as well. All right, you're not here to hear about me. We're going to get right down to business, people. What we want right now, specifically today, and with apologies to people watching this a year from now when the coronavirus is but a distant memory, and we're savoring moments of having dinners together with our family every night, longing for these good old days. Right now, what we want is the virus and more of Corona Extra or whatever sort of celebration we need, whether it's sparkling water or what have you. And the reason I say this is people more than ever right now are longing for meaningful connections. We're feeling isolated. We need haircuts. We're tired of wearing face masks. Am I right? Especially those of you like me near New York in a hot zone. We are longing to reconnect. I think we're discovering even us introverts, we're discovering how much we crave and need social interaction, even if it's with a couple of other people. So why is today's topic especially important? Learning the 4 languages of influence. Because if we speak if the key is to speak the language of the other person, to form that bond, to form that connection, that is the key to influencing others. Making that connection, and the first step is to speak in their language, not your language. It takes time. You got to practice. It's a constant exercise. Just the other night, with my son home due to the coronavirus, he was talking, and I applaud him for opening up. He was talking about his relationship with his girlfriend, and the whole topic of sharing feelings came up. And should he share them or not? How often do they communicate? So we did an analysis of each of their communication styles and realized that they both need a lot of praise, reinforcement, and so forth. So they're speaking the same language. And so we encouraged my son to speak her language and spend more time finding the positive and praising versus, working through issues. Anyway, so again, learning how to speak the other person's language is super, super important. And we'll talk about a couple of other things that come after that, speaking to their motivators, what are their emotional drivers, what's most important to the other person. And ultimately, it's about making a deeper connection and connecting heart to heart. We'll touch on that at the end. All right. Let's get you to think a little bit here. All right. Step 1 of speaking the other person's language is to identify their communication style. You should see on the screen 8 pictures. 4 are stacked vertically on the left. Our job right now is to go through those 4 on the left one by one and match them with the person on the right. 4 are exhibited on the right of the screen in a square fashion to match communication styles. All right, so let's take the first one, Mr. Rogers. Okay, so what do you notice about his communication style? By the way, this has nothing to do with politics, profession, preferences and lifestyles, none of that. We want to look at these people and focus only on how they communicate. So what do you notice about Mr. Rogers' communication style? Not what he's talking about, how he's talking. Well, in a class, I would have you all speak up. Feel free to make a note in the chat if you like. In the absence of interaction, I'm going to go ahead and read your minds and say what I typically hear in classrooms. Okay, Mr. Rogers, he is soft-spoken. He speaks at a slower pace. He's also very gentle and kind, which now starts to drift out of communication style, but it's how he approaches the world. So what we can identify right away without knowing him or his background, he speaks slowly. He also speaks fairly softly. So who over on the right has a similar communication style? Is it Hillary Clinton? Does she speak slowly and softly? I'd say no. What about Oprah Winfrey? No. Bill Gates. Now, Bill Gates, what do you notice that Bill Gates and Mr. Rogers have in common in communication style? They both speak slowly. So as you're analyzing people in your world, those people you need to influence, whether at home or at work or at play, the way to analyze them is saying, are they speaking fast or slow? All right. So right now, Mr. Rogers and Bill Gates, we're saying, both speak slowly. But is that the best match? Is that the most direct match? Let's go to Mother Teresa in the upper right corner. So she speaks slowly and softly also. But what's the difference between Mother Teresa and Bill Gates about what their preference is, what their priority is in terms of what they talk about? So think about that. Mother Teresa is more people-focused. Bill Gates is more task-focused. You see the difference? This is the harder thing to understand. It's fairly easy to assess somebody in terms of fast versus slow, but now we want to focus on their priority. Are they more people-focused, or are they more task-focused, focused on the project? So when you meet them, are they saying, hey, how was the weekend? How are you feeling? Or did they skip that and get right down to business? They're talking about specifications, the measurements, the time to market. See the difference? All right, let's move to the next one. Moving down the list, we've got our President Donald Trump. Now, by the way, you'll notice that Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are on here. They ran against each other in the last election. By the way, I put these 8 people up in this presentation long before the election came, and now that they're more, they have been in the news, shall we say, I get a lot of reaction from participants in my classes saying, you know what, you really should take them out. There are just too strong reactions, either positive or negative. Let's be honest, they're positive or negative reactions to both. But I said, let's leave them in, because do we get along and love everybody we have to influence and interact with? No. So one of the things we've got to overcome is getting that personal feeling out of the way, especially when it's negative. So let's analyze Donald Trump just in terms of delivery. And I know many things could be said, good and bad, about other aspects. But let's just focus on the delivery. Is he fast or slow? Well, he's fast, yes. Is he focused on people or the task? Well, we'd have to say he's focused on the task, right? Who over on the right matches people and task? Who matches fast-paced and task-focused? Well, it's not Mother Teresa. She speaks slowly. Bill Gates, we just said he speaks slow. Now, Oprah Winfrey speaks fast. Is she focused more on people or the task? Well, it's more on the people. Now, she's kind of borderline, because when she's off camera and she's running the show, she's, I hear, on the ball and kind of a taskmaster in a nice way. So one could say, well, Donald Trump is similar to Hillary and Oprah, but more like Hillary. All right, let's move down to the next one. We've got Robin Williams. Fast-paced or slow? He talks fast. God rest his soul. So who's most like him on the right? because he's more people focused. That would be Oprah Winfrey. And then finally, we've got former President Obama. And now one could say, well, gee, when he's giving a really good speech, he's talking pretty fast. But that's his on-stage persona. If you listen to him in the 60-minute interviews at the press conferences or what have you, he is very slow and deliberate and thoughtful. So he's, in his natural state, a slower-paced person. And ironically, greatly admired person, he is also more like Bill Gates in that he is task-focused. Okay? Hopefully you follow that around. I took my time on that slide because that really is the key to the kitchen here. You've got to analyze what is the other person's communication style, and that will tell you how to speak their language. So again, to summarize, what we want to do is look at their pace. Are they fast and active? Are they assertive and direct, and they speak a little bit louder? Or are they more moderate or slower paced? And are they thoughtful and calm in their delivery? Now, that would be Barack Obama, thoughtful, calm, deliberate, a thinking man. And then again, their priority, this is the hard one. Pay attention. It comes a lot easier. Are they focused on the task? Are they driven by logic, kind of an even, steady cadence? Or are they people-focused and they tend to be more flowing and, hey, whatever goes, it's going to be fine and so forth? Again, I took a little more time on those because that is the key. We get these 4 communication styles. It's called DISC, moving from the upper left clockwise around to the right. D for dominance, I for influence, S for steadiness, and C for conscientiousness. There are many versions of DISC out there. You can find more information online or certainly contact me. But DISC is one of the most popular communication style instruments out there. And it's, by golly, I've done this all over the world, and it's scary how accurate it is. So again, the characteristics are summarized there. We're going to come back to that in a minute. As we take a look at this, we don't have a time to take an assessment online now, but what I want to ask is, do you know which style you are based on our 10, 15 minutes into this conversation so far? Are you direct and strong-willed? Are you more like these showbiz people, outgoing, lively, kind of, some would say, fun? Are you a kind, gentle soul in the lower right, a steadiness, even-tempered, very accommodating, very sensitive to other people's feelings? Or are you more like Barack Obama and Bill Gates, analytical, reserved, precise, systematic? The odds are most of us on this call, or a majority, would be in that lower left corner because, by golly, we're engineers. This is what we do. This profession calls for this kind of strength, this kind of communication style. And when I say strength, let me take that back a little bit. None of these styles is better than the other. A good functioning organization, as you can imagine, needs all of these to be successful. We need somebody in the upper left to be driving the ship. We need somebody in the upper right to maybe be in marketing or sales or going to our events and making, keeping the energy going. We need somebody in the lower right, maybe in customer service. Again, I'm oversimplifying. Customer service to take care of frustrated, angry clients. Folks, at an airline, at the front desk, the counter where you check in, they've got to be people, folks, kind, gentle. We know they're not always, but that's the kind of person that would thrive in that job. Then for we engineers, we've got to design things that can impact people's lives. One false measurement, one inaccuracy, one failure to plan and test and retest, and by gosh, that plane could come down, as we've seen with the recent, not the airline, the Boeing, was it one of the 737 stretch, I think, had the issues. So you can see that all organizations need all types of people. But let's do a poll. We're going to go now to a poll to see who we are on this call. It'll be interesting to see. And we're going to go to the poll. Michelle, thank you. There it is. Which language do you speak? Dominance, more like our presidential candidates. Influencing, the more lively person. Steadiness, the kind, gentle Mother Teresa person. Or conscientiousness. I'm going to weigh in myself. Please take the poll, and Michelle is going to give us the results momentarily. All right, Michelle, how are we doing? Any results yet?
Let's see.
All right. And while we're waiting, feel free to type in questions in the chat box, or if you'd like to pick up, go a little bit faster, or slow down.
So we have the results. Dominance are 11.8%. Influence is 11%. Steadiness is 17.6%. And consciousness is a 59.6% so far.
Well, that would make sense based on what I said earlier. Hey, this is the IEEE, and a lot of engineers are in that C language. Mm-hmm. Michelle, thank you. That's great.
Welcome.
Again, you're all in the right place. We all need, every organization needs, there are the results in the next slide. Okay, I should have clicked ahead. All right, great. So what do we do with this information? By way of summarizing, here's the key. People like people who are like them. There's research to back this up. People like people who are like them. So I was teaching a class at a pharmaceutical in Boston, this class a year ago, and I was making a comment about where one of my children went to college in Grinnell, Iowa. And a hand shot up in the class and said, hey, I went to Grinnell. I'm like, no kidding. So we chit-chatted over lunch about Iowa, the cornfields, the train track that goes through campus, the Frontier Diner. And I felt this connection because we had something in common. People like to hang out with people that are like them, as you see in these groups, whether it's the Elvis, what have you. The trick is the reason why we want to speak the other person's language, for the obvious reason, of course, if we go to France, speaking French makes them feel connected to us, although they may make fun of our accents and our word choices. But we want to be a chameleon. We want to flex our communication style to match the other person. Why? Because people like people who are like them. Now, this does not mean to be fake, slick, fast-talking, phony. It's got to come from a sincere place. Every communication style is in every person. It's just that one is more prevalent than the other. So we've got to find that part of ourselves that matches the other person's communication style. In the same way, a good actor would find the part of, let's say, a murderer in themselves. Not that we need to do murder, but gosh, if we're honest, maybe some of us have the part of us that when pressed, we might do something awful. Maybe that's too much of a stretch, but you get the point. Don't fake it. Find the part of you inside that communicates like the other person, and you want to be a chameleon. Let me give you an example of how this played out. I think I might have used this story in one of my other classes, so bear with me if you've heard this before, but I think it's worth repeating. So my wife and I have we owned a tiny small cottage where I worked. We have a small house. We bought a cottage where I worked. Kids moved out of the house. We sold the cottage, and I moved back into the office, the home office. So this was about a year ago. We were interviewing real estate agents. And I just this morning asked my wife, I want to hear it fresh from your mouth, why did we pick the realtor we picked? And by the way, we ended up picking the lowest rated realtor, the one that came, of neighbors said, yeah, we didn't have that much luck, but I know my wife, or I didn't like her that much, but my wife was fine with her. So the first realtor, William Pitt, came by, highly recommended, sold the house across the street a few years ago, knew the neighborhood. And my wife said, you know what? We just did not connect. I said, well, what about her did not connect? She was a little too slow paced, told us to paint the front door. We love the front door the way it is. So slower paced, didn't really talk about people that much, about us, and was just kind of blah. Okay, over on the right, then another highly recommended realtor, William Ravis, came. They had literally just months before sold another house down the street. Highly recommended. We had met them at the open house. And I said, well, what about them? Too stiff, too formal. Though they knew the neighborhood, and it's kind of a funky neighborhood, kind of cabiny houses, just didn't get it. Then this lowest rated realtor came in, again, had just sold a house. So, some friends of ours, lively, energetic. Oh, I get it. I love the house. You people, I get it. You're outdoorsy, the pine paneling. You guys go hiking. And then she brought up the names of people that we both had in common. So just on the delivery alone, one was slower paced and people, as was the other one, maybe a little faster paced people. This one was loose, flowing, which is the style of both my wife and I. Again, I'm not going to belabor that point, but you've got examples in your own life where you have clicked with somebody. Now, as you analyze it, maybe after this webinar, think about, well, why do I click with them? Well, gosh, they're engineers. We communicate the same way. We're both kind of introverts, whatever it is. And then think about, why do I clash with somebody? A lot of it has to do with the communication style. Let's look at that, where the clashes come from. Now, here's a slide with two of the communication styles highlighted, the D and I. What do they have in common? Well, they both speak at a faster pace, much like the second realtor that came in. But what we don't have in common is the D is focused on the task, the I is focused on the people. If we look at that second realtor, if there were two of them, if they had made the adjustment to match our style, just unbutton the sport coat, loosen up, use some gestures, realize that Sandy and Roger Grannis are not stiff corporate people, even though I've got a background in corporate America. I was in the sales department. I hung out with the marketing people. Just loosen up a little bit. See the difference? Okay. Let's look at the next pairing, the I's and the S, the outgoing with the Mother Teresa. What do they have in common? They have the people in common. So they're more likely to be in sync than the diagonal opposites, where an engineer is with a salesperson. Again, I'm oversimplifying and generalizing. That's where the conflict is. Think about the people in your life, maybe one person right now. Who do you have conflict with? Try to strip away maybe beliefs and, different likes and those kinds of things. And think about the communication style. This is where the conflict comes. So when I see a salesperson and I go try to sell a C, a conscientiousness person, an engineer, and the salesperson says, Madam Engineer, trust me, the engine on the plane is beautiful. It's shiny. We put in a lot of work. It's great. Trust me, it's going to be 70% more fuel efficient. What do you feel like as an engineer? You're thinking, this guy has done no homework. He's a fast-talking salesperson. He's given me no facts and data. No way am I buying that airplane engine from him. Am I right? How about the complete opposite? Engineers, when we go talk to one of these rah-rah people, how do we feel? They're all over the map. We can't pin them down on anything. They start projects that they don't finish. So what do we have to do to get along? We've got to understand each other and flex our communication style. C's, if you're trying to influence an I, we've got to loosen up. We've got to put the book with every last detail away and give them a couple of highlights. We're going to talk about how to do that more specifically in a second. Here's the other source of conflict, the D's and the S's. The dominant people, I know we've got 11% of you on the call. You like to get to the point. You like bullet points. It's your way or the highway. Again, I'm oversimplifying, but this is what I hear the D's say all over the world. What do you like about yourselves? We like that we get things done. We like that I don't take a lot of input. and we're a done person. Well, when you're presenting like that to Mr. Rogers or Mother Teresa, they're going to feel crushed. Okay, so you got to slow down. You got to be a little bit more gentle. You got to give them time to connect with you. Ask about how they're doing. The S's are apt to say yes to everything. You've got to give them an opportunity to open up and be honest and say, if I give you this project, do you realistically have time to do it? And this is the key, and say, and it's okay if you don't. Okay? You've got to give them a chance to save face. All right? And part of it is just in the delivery. What is your tone like? I do a lot of backpacking with the Boy Scouts. We go out west. So I was in Yellowstone with a lot of fathers and sons a few years ago. And it was hot, really hot, really. I think somebody might be drinking out of a straw. Maybe we want to stop that. I'll go on mute. So it was a hot, humid day. And one of the leaders, a big banker from New York, was yelling and barking out orders to the kids. Now, number one is the adults aren't supposed to be leading. We're supposed to let the kids do it. But I was a little tired, and I said, Matt, stop yelling at the kids. And he pulled me aside and said, what am I doing? I said, your message is fine. There are bears out here, and we got to stick together. It's just your tone. It's loud, and you're punching the delivery. And now, 8 years later, he still thanks me for, he said, Roger, thank you for getting me to realize tone makes a big difference. Now, he has since turned into a soft talker, and I can't hear what he's saying. So there's a happy medium in there. All right. So think about somebody that you're having conflict with, somebody you need to influence. Think about their style and realize, especially across the diagonals, you've got to work extra hard to find out how they like to communicate and communicate in that style. All right. Hopefully this is helpful. Again, feel free to ask questions or make comments in the chat box. As I mentioned earlier, all dimensions are in all people. The key is to identify what the primary dimension is, their primary language or communication style, and speak to them in that way. It's amazing how this works. Again, it's got to come from a place of integrity, good intention. This is not a tool to be unethical or inauthentic, to just be an actor. Okay? Bring out the part that's more like them and suppress your urge to be more dominant or be wild and crazy. Make sense? All right. So now we're going to practice influencing people in each of these 4 ways. And I'll bring up this slide. By the way, this slide will be in the summary. This is the key, one of the key slides, or feel free to get a screenshot now. But I will bring this up again as we practice influencing each of the other 4 people. All right. So what are we going to influence them to do? We're going to influence 4 different people to go to a dinner at Shula's Steakhouse. Now, I don't know how many of you are in America National Football League fans. Football meaning that oval-shaped ball, not the soccer ball. Thank you, rest of the world. In the U.S., we have a team called the Miami Dolphins. Their coach back in the 1970s had a perfect season, no losses. He's got the most wins in this particular sport's history, and love it. He is a man of integrity. He said, folks, if we're going to win by playing by the rules. I applaud him for that. Thank you. What are we selling? The steak dinner, just to kind of get you in the mood. I'm showing a nice juicy steak on the screen, and now a bottle of wine from California and a slice of key lime pie. So it's the full dinner, and we're going to persuade 4 different people. Who are those people? None other than the Grannis family. That's a picture of my family when I was, I think I'd just become a teenager. And here we go. So we're going to we're going to influence each of the four people to go to dinner. Now, if you have families, am I right? Do you all agree on going to the same place for dinner whenever you decide to go out? Absolutely not. No way. There's often arguments, hurt feelings. These are families. We know what goes on. So this is going to give you a chance to perhaps improve your own home dynamics as well as the people you need to influence at work. Let's start with our electrical engineer. Let's start with somebody most of us can relate to, Roland, the electrical engineer. All right, what is Roland like? Well, I know what he's like. I grew up with it. We grew up in San Francisco. We'd get in the station wagon to go to beautiful places like Yosemite or Carmel on the California coast or Disneyland in Los Angeles, Anaheim. And what would Dad take pictures of?
Roger?
Telephone. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. The screen is frozen right now, and it's on where the picture of the pie is at.
Okay. Maybe you can take over advancing. It would be on the telephone pole, slide 32.
Let me see if I can push that to...
If not, I'll just keep going and I'll call out the slide number and I can describe what's on there and just let me know if we're moving forward or not.
Yeah, it's still stuck. I think it'd be fine if you can just move forward. Yeah. I don't want to delay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you.
No worries. So again, my dad, the electrical engineer, he worked in the telephone pole hardware business, would sell to the power and gas company like Pacific Gas and Electric. So he was always pulling over the station wagon to take pictures of telephone poles. I share this just because it brings a little character to our webinar, but also this is the way you're going to look for clues about you've got to influence somebody. You want to think about what their communication style is, what their language is. And so you've got to look for clues, not only in how they're delivering, but how do they behave? What is their behavior? Clearly, somebody taking pictures of a telephone pole is more task-focused than people-focused. Just a guess. When I was 11, I'm advancing to slide 33, if that's working. It's a picture of a garden hose over a lawn. With a small home in California, we had a backyard lawn that was about the size of a ping pong table or a pool table. And he said, Raj, you're now a young man. You are going to be responsible for watering the lawn. Of course, now there's no water in California. Can't do that. But back then, the good old days, we could still water our lawns. And I said, great, I got it. He goes, no. I want to show you how to do it. So he said, I want you to imagine there's a big piece of graph paper on the lawn, and it's dividing the lawn into 16 quadrants. I want you to water quadrant 1 back and forth 4 times, and then move to quadrant 2. Now, I am not an engineer. Certainly relate to engineers because my dad was. But as soon as he left, I said, thank you for the instructions. I am now a California wildfire firefighter. And I imagine I had just jumped out of an airplane. I had grabbed a hose, and I'm watering the lawn like a crazy man. So you see the difference. Engineer, not an engineer. See the difference? Wild, nonlinear behavior versus structured. Moving on to slide 35. In his retirement years, well, let me actually go back to slide 34 if we're working. What we see on the screen here is a picture of a Victorian house in San Francisco and an exact replica of it in miniature, about 3 feet long, over on the right. So my dad spent 9 or 10 years in retirement building an exact replica of the house that he grew up in. So what do you notice about the behavior and the communication style? Meticulous, precise, slow-paced. All right, so let's move now to what is his style most like. On the screen is a picture of my father, along with, over on the right, Mr. Rogers, Obama, Bill Gates, and Donald Trump. Who is my father most like? Slow-paced, task-focused. Well, that would be, of course, moving to slide 37. Bill Gates and Barack Obama. Again, that's slow, deliberate, thoughtful, precise. So how are we going to persuade him to go to a steakhouse dinner at Shula's? Okay, what do they want? They want you to come prepared. They want data and details. They want you to be accurate. They want you to give him time to decide. So what would he want to hear? Maybe the research you've done. You perhaps want to tell him you've considered 8 steakhouses and the reason you selected this one. Maybe there's some Yelp reviews. Maybe show him the menu and the wine list. Do they take reservations? Where is he going to park? What's our itinerary for the night going to be? And in a kind of funny way, what kind of steak sauce do they offer? You see that? That probably for 59% of you who are like my dad on this call, that probably sounded pretty good to you. You felt good, like we had done our homework and it wasn't just a snap recommendation. A lot of thought went behind it. How about your clients? Do you have clients that are like you that want all the details? How will you change your approach? Now, probably if you're just like them, as an engineer, the 59% of you, you're probably not going to change your style really at all. But if you're in one of those other categories, those other styles, you're going to need to shift and provide that research and do the preparation and make them feel comfortable. All right, let's move to our next person to influence. That would be Martha, my mother. Okay, again, listen to the clues. Physical education teacher. Can you make a decision based on that? You might be generalizing, but what does that suggest? Fast or slow paced? No, not many slow gym teachers out there. They're going to be fast paced. Okay, just to give an example of what her approach to life is, I was in it. I'm on slide 43. It's a picture of 5th and 6th graders in a school play, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I'm over on the right with a fake beard, a big pillow under my sweatshirt. I was Doc, the lead dwarf. And I announced then, when I go to college, I'm going to Hollywood. I'm going to become an actor. That did not sit well with my mother. She said, no. Now listen to her delivery. You're going to be an accountant. And by the way, you will get a haircut. You will go to church and you will be an Eagle Scout. What do you notice about the delivery? Not a lot of concern for feelings or emotion there. Bullet points, direct and to the point. So what do our Ds want? They want bullet points, direct and to the point. Now, we, especially as, let's say we're a Mother Teresa type, would feel terrible giving somebody direct, blunt, crushing news in that way. But everywhere I go, I ask the Ds, do you mind receiving it? Do you mind receiving information this way? And they all say, no, tell us like it is and tell us fast. So don't believe me, believe them. That's what they want to hear and how they want to hear it. So who's my mother's most like? The 2 presidential candidates, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. I think you got that one. Okay, let's persuade, let's influence a D, my mother, to go to the same restaurant, but we've got to change the way we do it. What do they want? Bullet points. They want to be specific and clear. We need to be efficient, no chit chat. Okay, here's what they want to hear. 3 bullet points. That's it. There's magic in delivering information in 3s. There's research behind it. Trust me. Okay, see, there we go. I'm an influencer. I say, trust me. That doesn't sound good to the engineer. Sorry about that, but I want to be efficient here with our time. So 3 bullet points, same restaurant, different person, got to change your approach. Best in town, reservation at 6 o'clock, valet parking. That's how they want it delivered. That's what you do. Don't get into all the details. Don't when I say beat around the bush, that's an American slang turn of phrase. Don't be indirect, be direct. Okay, make sense? Who in your world slide 52. Do you need to influence that you need to be a little more direct and to the point with? Think about that person. You gotta make the shift, especially if you're Mr. Rogers, Mother Teresa. Gosh, it does not feel good being that blunt. But when you're talking to somebody who is like that, that is how we need to do it. All right, let's move on to my sister, Carole. Again, based on profession, you might get some clues. She's a nurse. She is nice. She is nurturing. I looked at some pictures recently in the photo albums. My son's getting them all digitized. And I said, well, look at my sister. She's taking care of me by the water, making sure I'm not getting my feet wet by the creek, keeping an eye on me when we're, going swimming in a river. Pictures of a young man with an older sister by the water on the screen, slide 54. So she's a Mr. Rogers, Mother Teresa. So how do we influence her to go to the same exact restaurant? Be kind and gentle. Emphasize the people and the team, that they're all clear, they've sanitized for COVID-19. Support her feelings. Be non-threatening. So how are we going to influence her to go to the same restaurant? Talk about the quiet tables in the back. It's a great place where we can reconnect and have really good conversation. They have dishes to please everyone. Vegan, vegetarian, along with the steak. So same restaurant, different approach. All right. Again, if you're a dominant person speaking to my sister, slow down. Talk about how important it is to reconnect. We're going to have time to talk. All right. Make sense? All right. Who in your client base, who is somebody at work, at home, or gosh, maybe I need to be a little more sensitive to their feelings. I need to slow down. Don't just randomly fire off a question in the kitchen while they're busy. Take time after dinner. Why don't we go to the living room? Let's put on a fire. Let's reconnect. Let's have some really good conversation. So it's not just how to do it, but where to do it. If you've got to give some feedback to somebody at work, maybe you don't want to do it in your office. You want to go to a coffee shop or go to a neutral conference room where you can sit not directly at a cross where you are face to face, but maybe sitting across the corner of the table. It's a little less confrontational, a little less threatening. All right, let's move to the final person we need to influence. That would be me, Roger. And we know about me, crazy with the watering of the lawn. We're moving to slide 60 now. I'm not really a wild party person, but a lot of the people with my communication style are. And you can see one of my neighbors here, a beard, long hair, very creative. These are the people I enjoy hanging out with. So you can get a sense of, again, a person, me, by their activities as well as their delivery. Okay, so who has got a similar communication style to Roger? Is it Will Ferrell in Anchorman, Oprah Winfrey, Donald Trump, and or Robin Williams? Well, it's all three in the upper left. Will Ferrell, Oprah Winfrey, and Robin Williams. So, folks, if you are, as engineers, and you're talking to one of your loose cannons, I'm being funny, somebody who's energetic, maybe not quite as structured as you would prefer, you've got to amp it up and just say, oh, this project is going to be great. It's going to be a wow. Yeah. Trust, the engineering's fine, but it's going to be awesome. People are going to applaud. It's going to put a new shine on our department. That's what they want to hear, not all of the bits and the bytes and the ad infinitum specifications. All right, let's practice influencing them to go to the restaurant. We want to talk about, we want to be positive and energizing. talk about how it's going to help us socialize. They prefer stories, not spreadsheets. They want to have fun. When I'm doing this in a workshop or even in a large auditorium, and we've got all the influencers together, and they say, and I ask them, how do you want to be influenced to go to a restaurant? They want to hear, do they have a bar? They always say that. So party, lively. So here's how we might influence them to go to the same restaurant. Hey, they've got happy hour. They got 20 beers on tap, awesome service, lively atmosphere. They got new specials every night, so there's something new and exciting. And they've got this really neat sports memorabilia on the wall. It's awesome. We're going to have an awesome time. You see the difference? It seems easy, but it isn't. The hard part, again, is communicating to the person in that diagonal opposite quadrant and really believing that somebody else would actually want to hear information that way. But that's how it works. It's been backed up by data. Again, I've done this throughout Europe, the US, all over. Whenever I ask people what they like and dislike about themselves in each of these quadrants, the answers are all the same, and I have summarized them for you. Do you have a client? Is there somebody at work or at home that you need to influence that's more like an influence, that is an influencer, where you need to be a little more loose, you need to pick up the pace, you need to be energizing? Think about it and think how you're going to make those adjustments. Let me just pause. We've got about 9 minutes left. Any questions? Feel free to put them in the chat. Let me give you an example of why I chose a specific mortgage person. Just 3 weeks ago, with interest rates down, I decided to refinance. I knew a mortgage broker at the same company. I won't mention the name. He had done a mortgage for me on a few years ago, and the problem was I would send him an email, he would call me back, leave a voicemail, I'd call him, get his voicemail, and I got really frustrated. He also went into lots of detail. I said, what's the interest rate going to be? He said, well, I don't know because the feds are doing something with the T-bills and the blah, 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 blah. I'm like, Matt, I don't need to know this information. He said, well, you do need to know this information because it's going to impact what the interest rate's going to be. I said, just give me a ballpark. I won't hold it to you. And then he started in again. Lots of details. He's being a conscientiousness person. Too many details. I just want to know. In this case, I was more like the dominance person. I need the bottom line. I don't want all the background, and it didn't work. So anyway, his boss ended up assigning me to somebody else who was really good at answering everything in email. Like, why did the other guy need to call me? Leave a voicemail. Maybe he was concerned that there'd be an email trail. I don't know, but that's an example of a C. Providing way too much information when especially a dominant person wants to get to the point or just is not concerned with all the details. All right, let's move down our influence funnel here. Again, the key is to speak their language, but we also want to understand what their motivators are. What's important to them? We want to know certainly at a work, on a business or departmental level, but also on a personal level. What is their hot button? So here's a kind of a funny story. So 30 plus years ago, I was dating somebody else, actually got engaged, and I broke up. It just wasn't a good match. I knew it wasn't a great match from the beginning, and so I did call it off in a nice way. And I met somebody 5 weeks later, and my mom said, "You're on the rebound. This is a big mistake. Stop dating her right now." And I needed to identify what was her hot button, my mom's hot button. And I remembered Scouts. Boy Scouts was really important to her. So I said, Mom, yeah, she wants bullet points, and I better pick the right bullet points. All I needed to say was, Mom, her brother is an Eagle Scout. Now, you'd think, well, so what? My brother-in-law hates that because he was not a Boy Scout. But it worked. I gave my mom the one bullet point that played into something that's super important to her. Okay. And I'm going to end with a final story. First, before we do that, any questions? Any questions? All right. I'd like to, as I start this, maybe start thinking about what's been most helpful here. I'd love to see some just quick feedback in the chat before we head out. And end with a story. It takes place out in the woods. I mentioned that I do a lot of backpacking, and my son and I have hiked more than 1,000 miles together. Up on the screen is a picture of my son, Ben, standing in the California Sierras. We've got lakes and mountains in the background, and he's just posing for a picture. And later that day, he lost something, his most important, his most valued possession. He had a water bottle, one of those Nalgene's, and every hike we'd been on all over the United States, he had bought a sticker and put them on the blue water bottle. And it fell out of his pack, and I was crushed. My wife says, oh, no, you just have obsessive compulsive disorder. You don't like losing things. But it was a symbol of the love my son and I have for each other and the time we had spent together. And now this water bottle was lost. So I said, wait, I got an idea. What if we asked the people walking the opposite direction to look for it on the trail, pick it up, hand it to somebody, and then have them bring it up to us, and hopefully at the campsite, even though we're moving forward many miles a day, we'd eventually get it. So this is part of the code out on the trail. We're nice to each other. So 4 or 5 parties came up. I said, did you bring a water bottle? And they said, no. What are you talking about? Well, this guy with long hair, and we asked him to look for the water bottle. He didn't hand it to you. No. The sun was going down, and I was just about, I had given up. I'm moving now to slide 75. And up over the horizon came this hiker, this long-haired, sunburned hiker carrying my son's water bottle. What somebody had done was they ripped out a page of their map, wrote a note, left it on the trail junction marker with a rock on it, and another hiker got the note, read it, did find the bottle, and brought it up to us. And here it is. So what's the point of that story? It's kind of corny, but we're not just trying to, when influencing other people, we don't just want to speak their language or talk about the research we've done. Ultimately, we want to talk about what's important to them. And really what it comes down to, we're helping another human being. Everyone's got something inside them that feels like a missing water bottle. And our job is to not just speak their language, but to deliver them, bring back that missing water bottle. Again, a little corny, but that's what I wanted to wrap up on. So thank you for listening. A couple of offers, if you'd like. What we do here at Grannis Group is we help companies and people speak well, present well, and be more influential. I guess we are going to forward a few summary slides. You can certainly email those. You can email me directly if you'd like those. If you would like a conversation, a 30-minute consultation, I can certainly offer that to 5 people. I'm not selling anything. I just like helping people. This is a tough time for many people with COVID-19 going on. And if your organization wants to hear more about services, workshops, coaching, consulting, be more than happy to speak to you about that. But I'm dead serious about number 2. Would love to chat with you, whether it's about influencing somebody at work or home or tightening up a presentation you need to give. Well, thank you. It's been great, and certainly here for questions if you've got them.
Hi, Roger. Are you able to see any of the questions being asked on the screen? Or do you want me to read out a few?
You know what? I've been looking, but I did not see them. I apologize. Are we good to go a few minutes extra?
Yes, I think we should be fine.
Okay, great. I'm sorry that I did not, was not able to see those. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'll pick out a few. Let's see. Someone's asking, how do you translate the slow and deliberate versus fast communication style to email communication?
Great question. The general rule for email is to look at the other person's style and to match it. A couple of the clues are they might ask about the family, hey, I hope you're doing well. How is the family? Other people just get right down to business. They're more task focused. What was the particular instance? How would the chit chat get to the point? Could you just repeat that part?
I'll read the whole entire thing. How do you translate the slow and deliberate versus fast communication style to email communication?
Oh, okay. So both. Right. In all cases, you want to be super clear. Again, the key is to match the other style. Let me give you an example. So the same person, Matt from the backpacking, who was, quote, yelling at the kids, after we graduated from going on these trips, I emailed Matt once. I said, hey, how was the trip to Mount Rainier? And he said, great. And I'm like, hello, how about a little more information? So I pulled him aside one time. I said, well, why are your emails so direct and to the point? A, it's his style, but B, he said, I'm in the finance business. I don't want anything to be misinterpreted. So it's okay to be direct and to the point, especially with those direct people. When you're speaking to the Mother Teresa's, the slower, I think my personal opinion is to insert just a little bit of that personal at the beginning. I hope you're coping well with everything going on. Please let me know how you're doing, and then get to the business. But you don't want to add so much color that the message gets blurry, because a lot of people, even the Mother Teresa's, we're busy. We don't want to have to figure out what we're trying to say. So bottom line, the direct people, just be direct. Don't worry about it. The kind, gentle people, put in a little bit, but still keep it clear. And it's okay to use bullet points. Those do help make emails more easy to follow. All right. Hopefully we got that one.
Great. Thank you. Here's another one. How can we practice DISC online in this time of social distancing?
How can we practice DISC online in times of social distancing? Well, one way is to pick up the phone. We are starved for conversation. So in addition to email, perhaps suggest connecting for 10 or 15 minutes, have a virtual coffee. I'm sorry, what was the first? How do we practice?
Practice DISC online.
Yeah, if we're just communicating online via email, it gets back to what I said earlier. Match the person's style. If it's an influencer, you could say, "What are you doing for fun these days?" If it's a C, you might want to provide more detail. I'd love to hear more about this project. What are the 3 most important things you need me to do to help you complete that? Again, they want the details and the practice. Let them know you're thinking about them. Maybe for the D, how can I help you get these projects done? Or go to them with a recommendation. I'd love to help you with this. What if I were to do that? Again, you're looking for bullets. You want to lift their burden. You want to help them get things done. What the Ds don't want to hear is, how am I doing? What can I do? They don't want to be burdened with coming up with the ideas. You've got to go to them and make the recommendations. Hopefully that's helpful.
Here's another question. Does company culture affect the style?
Yes. I've got a couple of slides where I say, what is the style of the company? So one would be Apple Computer. So what quadrant would you put them in? Upper right. Even though they're based on engineering, they're about design, the look. Go to an Apple store. These people are upbeat, positive, and friendly. Cross the mall and go to the Microsoft store. It's very engineered focused. And I'm sorry, but I never see people at the Microsoft store. It's a direct copy of Apple, but their company personality, Microsoft, especially the earlier days, I think they're coming around a little bit now. It was more task focused versus people. But yes, the overall culture of a company would affect how employees behave. But every good company knows we need all four styles. I think the risk is if you've got a company in that entrepreneurial, that upper right corner I phase, we may overlook some of the details that are needed to get things done. It's the old story of the salespeople promising feats, engineering feats that are, against the laws of physics. So regardless of the personality, the style of the company, a good company knows we need all four styles within us. But I do think it taints the culture. Taints, that's maybe not the right word. It does influence the personality of a company. General Electric, how would you define them in terms of style? I'd put them as Ds. I've done a lot of work for them, that upper left quadrant. They're very task focused, very bottom line focused. Okay, happy to take more questions.
Let's do one more question. Let's see. How do you deal with audience that are unknown or of derived characteristics?
Oh, great question. Great question. So if you don't know the audience, it would be good to do some homework ahead of time. Talk to the meeting planner, talk to the person running the meeting. Find out what's important to them, and ask who's going to be in the audience and what are they like. They may not know their social style, their communication style, but get a sense. Steve is very bottom line focused. Julie likes to have a lot of fun. When you're presenting to multiple people, I suggest two things. The first thing we need to do is to find out who the power person is, who is the key decision maker, and make sure most of your presentation, your communication, is slanted toward him or her. Then have a slide or two, a sentence or two that touches on the other social styles. So for example, let's say I'm trying to persuade an audience to use a particular tree cutting, tree cutter. I've got a tree that needs to be taken down. I've got to present this to a group of 20 people who are going to decide which tree company to use, and the price for taking the tree down is all the same. Let's say the primary buyer, the key decision maker, the one who will write the check, is a dominance person. I would say safest record, first availability, highly recommended by Julie down the street. And now I'm doing the other three, and for the eyes, upper right, and it's going to look awesome. For the lower right, they're going to make sure everything stays in place, and they're going to rake it up looking really nice at the end. So the kids will be out playing in the yard the next day. And now for the C's, the engineers, they go out of their way for safety. They're highest rated in safety. They sharpen the blades every day. They have not had an accident in 10 years. So again, speak and look at the key decision maker, speak in their style, and then do a quick sweep to the there we go. The second point was another key when preparing for any audience. Think about that style that's the diagonal opposite of yours, and put some thinking into and create some content for that, because that's your biggest blind spot. And there will be people who need that content. and you need to deliver it to them. And it will get you to just have a better presentation because you're looking at it through a different set of eyes. So, for example, my biggest weakness is when I'm presenting, it's family stories, life is wonderful, it's all optimistic, and then I leave out the details like sharpening the saw every day and the track record and all that. So think about that diagonal opposite style, what they need, and add some content from that perspective in your presentation.
Great. Thank you, Roger. Thank you so much for this informative presentation, and thank you to everyone for participating. I also wanted to mention that we are offering the Distinguished Lecture webinar series of focusing on technical content. The next webinar in the Distinguished Lecture series will be held on the 26th of May at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, presented by Dr. San Murkison, Director of Bright Professional Services and Adjunct Professor at the School of Computing and Mathematics at Western Sydney University, Australia. He will be discussing IT and the fight against COVID-19. Our next Build Our Career webinar will be held on 18th of June at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on What Everybody is Saying by Elsa Velasco-Paul, co-founder and creator of the M&E Group. Registration for these upcoming events are now open. Again, we will be sending you a link to these future events along with the slides and recording of this webinar. Thank you again, everyone, and have a great day.